All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Coffee with Connections. And we have a very special episode this week because we have our very own Sterling coming on the show. So, Sterling, how are you?
Doing great, Cooper. Thanks for having me, and super excited about this. I mean, I love what you're doing, and I also love your vest. You
We did decide to
got
match
the
today. We're in our matching Centurion vest today. But Sterling, I mean, for the folks that have been following me, that they've saw I've recently joined here at Centurion Wealth, and I'm sure a lot of our mutual connections know what we're up to. But for the folks maybe that are seeing us for the first time, why don't you just go ahead and maybe give us a little bit of insight into what got you into the financial services industry, and then maybe what led you even to starting Centurion Wealth Management.
Sure. So, my background, my grandfather was a stockbroker, and although I didn't get to really know him, it kind of hit home with my mother, who always followed Warren Buffett, and she would always talk about Warren Buffett. And as a child, I would always be hearing about his name, Berkshire Hathaway, what Berkshire Hathaway is doing, what the stock's doing, and I really just took a keen interest in Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, and that led to following other stocks and the stock market in general, and just understanding about business. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so just the entrepreneurship spirit was there, but specifically in investing and investing in stocks and businesses. So fast forward, at a young age, I kind of knew I wanted to get into that, and decided to be a finance major at JMU, and then from there, at a fraternity brother of mine worked in the industry. I started with working with him, and then went into working with an independent firm that was local, and really just started where I started at a large firm that was primarily insurance driven. And they had a department that focused on investments, and that's kind of how they sold me into the position. Once I was there, I realized, they're really trying to push insurance products, and that was not for me.
Right.
It was just what, I felt like, the insurance products were not the solution to everything. I'd be the guy who, raised their hand in the training class and said, for college savings, wouldn't a 529 plan be better than an annuity or life insurance policy?
Right.
And the trainer would just give me stare me down like, you shouldn't be here.
Right.
So that was a short-lived job. And I reached out to three of the, top advisors in the DC area, and I scheduled an appointment. I won't give you his name, but sat down with him and, said, I want to be you in 20 years. What should I do? And the first thing he said was, I'm not hiring. I said, don't worry, I'm not looking for a job with you. What should I do? I want to be you in 20 years. And he said, I'll give you three pieces of advice. One, go independent. He's like, everyone's going to be moving to more of the independent side of the business.
Yep.
Because you're going to give true advice that is in your client's best interest. You're not, incentivized to sell product. And then secondly, he said, join a team. Solo advisors are going to be a dying breed. You really need a full team to give the right advice and support to clients. And then third, he said, find someone that's old that you can kind of grow in and take over their business. So I went back, I looked up every single successful advisor over the age of 60 in the Washington, D.C. area, and sent them all a personal letter, and ended up, getting hired by one of them.
I'll expand on that because you made a good point, is that, we're in a point in our industry where, there are new, we at Centurion Wealth Management are fiduciaries. We act in our clients' best interest. We were legally required to, but we do it with a badge of honor. We truly enjoy working with our clients and finding solutions that are in their best interest, of course, first. And that's, unfortunately, the industry it's not black and white. There still does exist in the industry what we would call, like you said, maybe your early experience, financial sales. And and the difference between working with a true fiduciary firm couldn't be more stark. So I appreciate that clarification. When you set out to build Centurion, as we were talking about, what were some of the guiding principles that you kind of set down and said, okay, I want to build a firm that looks like this, acts like this, and lives and breathes the mantra of what I want to create? How was that process, and how did you kind of come to it? And of course, our co-founder Wendy Payne is of course involved, and then later Mark. But talk to me about those early days when you were laying out the framework of, okay, I've got this dream for Centurion, and maybe even where the name Centurion even came from.
I think the best place to start is, the firm I came from, fantastic firm, great people. It wasn't for me for the long term, and I would say the biggest thing was the Wendy and I were groomed to kind of take over the firm from an ownership perspective and running it. And the owner at the time, wasn't in a place, from an age standpoint, I think he was in a place to let go. However, he felt differently. And so that was one thing, was just the succession planning, which is a major problem in our industry. There's many people. I think the average age in our industry is like 59, and there are a lot of older biz or firm owners who just don't want to let go, and so that became an issue. And we were just in different places in life where Wendy and I really wanted to invest a lot back into the business in terms of technology and employees and so forth. And the owner had a different stance on that, and so it was just kind of we didn't see eye to eye on those items. So first and foremost, when Wendy and I decided to start Centurion, one of the biggest things we did is, in our operating agreement, we said at age 70 you have to sell your ownership to probably to the next generation. That's kind of how it was designed. So I can't be here at 78 and still have ownership and be clocked out and maybe not making the best decisions for the firm. So at age 70, no questions asked, I have to sell my ownership stake. So that was one thing, that we did to resolve that problem. Secondly, we vowed to really reinvest into the business. So that's hiring fantastic people like yourself and the other employees we have at Centurion, and also investing in technology. I mean, we want the best technology, the best resources to give the best advice to our clients, and we're going to make sure we have that. Our goal isn't maximizing bottom line profit. We do want to operate at a profit, but we want happy employees. They're family to us, and we want very happy clients. They're also family to us, and we want very strong efficiencies when it comes to technology, investing in research, and so forth.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I can certainly vouch to it because, Sterling and I have known each other for quite some time now. And, my role at Centurion Wealth is multifaceted, I would say, but, we want to be an industry leader in talking about financial literacy, talking about the financial services industry, talking about entrepreneurship and business and whatnot. So I can attest to the forward thinking, what's coming next. We want to be at leading the industry, not reacting to it type mentality here at Centurion. From an outside perspective, from a client's perspective, or someone who's looking into Centurion, talk to me a little bit about, I guess, the process of when we're sitting down with a client. Of course, every situation is different. This is not direct financial advice, but talk to me a little bit about the process and maybe how we're a little bit different than someone else. And then also something that I truly love and truly appreciate is the family benchmark that we utilize when we work with clients when thinking about returns and thinking about kind of goals and financial planning. So maybe if you want to speak a little bit to that.
Sure. So one thing we really dig in deep to all aspects of our clients' financial lives. So we look at their estate planning documents. My partner, Wendy, she's a certified estate planner. So she reads everyone's trusts, their wills, medical directives, and makes sure that everything is in place and it says what you think and want it to say, right? And we've run into circumstances where it says something differently than our client's wishes. So we read into that, map that out. We look at all of our clients' tax returns, And that's where we actually, believe it or not, find a lot of errors. Every year I find errors, and I don't think it's a fact of their CPAs not being knowledgeable. I just think CPAs in general are inundated with so much data in such a short period of time that it's just prone to errors. So
Right.
so we really dig into that, try to find creative solutions to minimize our clients' tax liabilities on an ongoing basis. And then, of course, recommend on the investments. I mean, that's how we're paid primarily, and that's really the fuel in the engine that's going to drive the client to reach their goals. So we do a lot of goal planning of where a client wants to be, and then we quantify that, right, and make it very simple for the client to understand, because we understand clients don't want to come in and start talking about Sharp ratios and alpha of their portfolio and valuation metrics. They just want to know, am I going to have enough money to live my life the way I want to live it until the day I die, and give whatever amount I want to give to my children or charities or whatnot. So we really try to simplify it into those terms, and then make it relevant to those terms. So, and that's where the family benchmark comes into play. Is the family benchmark, which is our trademark process that we have, is all about calculating the rate of return they need to achieve everything they want in their life. So let's say a client's family benchmark is 5.2%, and they truly told me everything they want in life, including what they want to leave as a legacy. Then why take on the extra risk of trying to get 9, 10, 11% when you don't need to do that? So that's where the whole family benchmark concept came into play. And it really came about around 2008, 2009, and where we saw too many people going into 2008 were taking more risk than they needed to. And it was devastating, especially for someone that was just entering into retirement. And if they had, let's say 80-90% in equities, lost, close to half of their portfolio, they were in a situation where they had to go back to work. And that's what we want to avoid, right?
Right. And it's so important too, because I mean, it's folks are always, comparing yourself to a benchmark, and the financial service industry, maybe needs more communication on this, because we reference benchmarks all the time with regards to how we're performing. But it's important from an individual perspective that, say you have someone that has a certain amount of return, they may be taking on a lot more risk than you're willing to take on. That doesn't mean that their plan is better than your plan. As Sterling points out, the family benchmark focuses on what you're trying to achieve and the rates of return that you need to live the life that you're trying to do. So extremely important. And if you're listening to this and you're watching and say, oh, that's pretty interesting, if you go over to CenturionWealth.com, we have our whole process listed out in terms of what you can expect when you work with us and onboard here at Centurion Wealth. And then, of course, if you want to have a meeting, we can do a deep dive and actually get to know you, and would love to hear your individual situation. But Sterling, let's switch gears a little bit and speak a little bit about entrepreneurship, because we touched on it. You said you came from a family of entrepreneurs. I know you said yourself, maybe was it selling candy as a kid? But what does that mean when I say entrepreneurship? What does that mean to you? And in your mind, the current state of entrepreneurship, and maybe even like what makes a successful entrepreneur in your mind?
Sure. So as I said, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My father had his own law firm. My grandfather had his own brokerage firm, and my mother's, had a few different businesses throughout the years. And so really grew up in that environment. And it's also just the way I think. It's, and it's hard to explain, because I always thought everyone thinks the way I do. And just as, even in my teenage years, I had a running list of business ideas that I was going to start. And still to this day, I have that list of things. And there's been some businesses that, probably could have ended up being unicorns if I just went off and took the risk and raised capital and so forth. So one being, Angel's List, or Angie's List, had that idea before Angie's List, and we actually did a website and everything, started signing people up. But then it got to the point that do I want to jump off, take the risk, and do this 100%? And I didn't do it. But going back to, but did start a business, Centurion Wealth. Also, my wife has her own business, and I encouraged her and helped her start her business, which is a government contracting firm. And then since then, we've had some other side businesses that we started. Like we started a wine making company, which we have our first wine coming out in 2022.
Very nice.
So very excited about that. So, I just live and breathe entrepreneurship. In fact, that's who I like to work with as clients. I'd say a large percentage of my clientele that I work with are entrepreneurs, and I just love to hear their stories, how they started, their challenges, and, try to help them through that, even though that's not my primary job. It's just something I'm very passionate about. And that's, I see myself in the future probably starting some other companies, on the side, maybe with my children, who knows? But it's something I live and breathe. I help, again, it's a big percentage of my clientele, and I also invest in small businesses as well.
That's important too. I mean, because so many entrepreneurs, a lot of them have a passion around what it is they do, but maybe the investing, the personal finance, the financial engineering of that side of the business, or that side of business in general, is a little bit challenging for them. So how important it is to work with a CFP or a financial planner like yourself, and let them focus on their business and strategically partner and work with a planner to help accomplish the financial goals. I think it's kind of pretty cool that you're both an entrepreneur and a financial planner that helps entrepreneurs.
And you mentioned, what makes a good entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of things. I mean, one, you have to be a risk taker.
Right.
You can't be risk adverse, because it's a major leap of faith to go start a business.
Yep.
I've gone through it twice in my family, through my wife and myself. And, when we started, I didn't know, I said, we're either going to make it or we're going to be on the streets. So there's no in between. And we did that twice. So once with Brooke, my wife, and then once with me. And luckily, so far it's worked out well. So certainly a higher risk individual. Secondly, you have to be very good at surrounding yourself with the right people. So a big mistake people make when starting their own business, and sometimes it's let's say it's a tech business. A lot of times you'll have the very smart techie guy wanting to start the business, and what happens is you'll see that business fail because, yes, they're great at what they do, and even if that's what the business does, they are so focused on working in the business, they can't work on the business. So
Right.
What ends up happening is they build themselves out, but they can't expand or scale up because they don't have the time to remove themselves from working in the business and work on the business. So hiring the right people, business development, you can't run a business without clients
Right.
or customers. And so business development's huge. If you can't bring in the business, there's not going to be a business. Even if you're the best at what you do, you still need to bring the business in. So things like that, and being a good delegator is another thing. If you, and that's kind of, goes hand in hand with working in the business. If you can't delegate, it's going to be hard to build, right?
Right.
You just need to be able to focus on the big picture, the strategy, the vision, and the people. And I think that's what makes you a successful entrepreneur.
Not being afraid to, you have this vision, you're painting your painting, but then also allow other people to help you paint that painting, and allow them to do their skill set and help you grow the overall vision. I think that's an important lesson for all entrepreneurs.
Right.
Looking out, it's 2021. What are you most looking forward to with Centurion Wealth ahead of us? We've mentioned, we're a growing team. We're adding new team members. We're growing our assets under management. What are you most optimistic about for Centurion Wealth specifically, and as you look out into the industry in general?
Sure. So, my first and foremost priority is, I look at it and I tell clients this, I tell friends this, I have three families. I have my family at home, my second family, which is, Centurion Wealth, the partners and the employees of Centurion Wealth, and my third family, which are all of our clients. And my first and foremost priority with Centurion Wealth is to take care of my three families, right? So what does that mean? That means, if we work our way from out to in, making sure our clients are very well taken care of. So, providing amazing service, top tier advice, and, making basically, we're ultimately giving them peace of mind, right?
Mhm.
So making sure they have peace of mind that they're going to accomplish their goals. And we're very honest about it. We're not sugarcoating everything. Everything we do, we stress test. So when we're telling a client they can retire or they can do something, it's stress test. And we're just saying with, over 90% confidence. And then secondly, keeping our employees, happy. So giving them a good, work-life balance, giving them the right tools and technologies to be efficient, allowing them to utilize their unique abilities. So, Cooper, I'm not going to have you, doing forms. I have you doing interviews and PR and speaking to the public because that's what you're great at. So I don't want you doing other things, besides what you're great at. So really having our employees, my second family, do what they're great at and keeping them happy with whatever it means. And then, my direct family, obviously we have to be profitable, and I have to, keep a roof over my head and food on the table and so forth. So, so really it's just a matter of that. And I think everything else kind of comes naturally. I mean, we're at a point where our growth is very strong. We're never going to grow at the expense of our clients and our employees. So we have to manage growth in that way, in that regard. But yeah, I think the growth naturally comes with the good advice, the good service, and the good people.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And like I said earlier, I could attest to all the stuff that Sterling has mentioned on this episode because maybe a little biased. I'm here with Centurion, wearing the Centurion vest, but it's true, and I truly do feel like the industry is at a little bit of an inflection point, and we feel like we're on the right side of history in terms of servicing clients and the proactive and industry leading type behavior and services that we're trying to provide for our clients. And not reacting and staying with stuff from a long time ago. So could not be more appreciative of joining this incredible team, and look forward to riding this ship with everybody and continuing to service our clients. And certainly I appreciate you coming on Coffee with Connections and sharing a little bit behind the scenes of what we're up to and your passions into the industry, and excited for our future ahead of us.
Great. Thanks, Cooper.